Overnight in occupied Crimea, Ukraine's drones found the peninsula's biggest fuel nerve and lit it up. By the next day, the Feodosia oil terminal was still burning. A black column visible for miles as flames stepped from tank to tank while emergency crews ran out of easy options. If one night of precision flying can keep a strategic hub ablaze for days, what happens to every depot, convoy, and airfield downstream of that fire? Just before dawn, a wave of Ukrainian drones hit the Feodosia oil terminal, the largest Russian fuel hub in occupied Crimea, and the night erupted into day. Kremlin-installed officials did not deny it. They confirmed the blaze, insisted air defenses downed more than 20 drones, and promised control. But the flames kept building, licking higher as sunrise exposed a fire too big to spin away. If intercepted really meant safe, why did the plume grow through daylight? Because depots are unforgiving systems. A single well-placed hit near a manifold or shared berm can propagate heat and failure across adjacent tanks faster than responders can isolate the lines. And this wasn't a one-off scare either. The same facility had been struck earlier in the week, which means defenders face a second-round puzzle before they'd solved the first. Are we watching a numbers contest about drones shot down, or an effects contest about the fuel removed from the fight? The answer sits in the smoke. The timeline was as stark as the images. Local administrators posted before sunrise that emergency services was swarming the site. Hours later, they were still updating communities about a fire that refused to die. Independent Ukrainian reporting confirmed what residents filmed on their phones. A day after impact, Russia's largest Crimean oil terminal remained on fire, with a column visible for tens of kilometers along the coast. When a claim survives morning, afternoon, and evening, it stops being controversy and becomes logistics. How long before commanders accept that rear area is now a phrase, not a fact? Strip away the fog and the facts align. Ukrainian drones struck around midnight. Occupation authorities acknowledged the fire and the blaze did not end with the dawn. Early coverage stressed that Feodosia had been hit twice within 7 days, turning a proud node into a liability. Follow-ups the next day documented that the terminal was still burning. Then Ukraine's general staff attached a hard number to the damage. 16 fuel tanks compromised, far beyond a single tank flare, and exactly the sort of multi-point loss that breaks schedules as well as morale. Do you need a loud claim of responsibility when the occupier's own officials describe the aftermath and your cameras match the geography? Or is physics under bright sun the most credible source in the room? Verification matters because audiences can smell overreach. The Kiev Independent Desk paired local imagery and official statements with time-stamped updates, while Guardian briefings emphasized the knock-on effects for Russia's fuel planning. When the people in charge of the territory confirm the fire and independent outlets map the same heat and smoke, you don't need gore or triumphal monologues. You need crisp cause and effect. Isn't that why viewers stick around? To see the loop closed cleanly? Feodosia is more than a tank farm. It's a maritime terminal wired into pipelines, storage fields, rail spurs, and road convoys that feed air bases, ports, and garrisons across Crimea and toward the southern fronts. Multi-tank damage at a hub like this forces operators to reroute product, slow pumping schedules, and outsource demand to smaller depots with weaker defenses and poorer safety culture. That creates choke points where Ukraine excels. Idling rail cars at sidings, bunched tanker trucks at gates, and delayed vessel rotations at berths. All of them observable, all of them tempting. If you are an officer planning flights or patrols next week, do you risk normal tempo and hope the pipes hum? Or do you ration temporarily and pray no one notices the whir? When a single night's work scrambles your next 7 days, the battlefield quietly tilts. Zoom out and the ripple reaches politics as well as pipelines. A secure terminal burning through sunrise contradicts the promise that Crimea's deep rear is insulated from Ukrainian reach. That dense confidence invites blame up the chain and pushes planners to ring storage with high-value air defenses rather than guard bridges, ports, and radars. Draw more rings around fuel, and new gaps appear elsewhere. Protect the gaps, and fuel burns again. How many rings can you afford before the front line starts to feel the draft? How many temporary changes become the new normal? Those aren't rhetorical questions for TV. They are choices staff officers must make before the next shift. Defenders love tallying interceptions. Attackers count outcomes. Swarm logic splits sensors, drains interceptor stocks, and forces crews to guess which tracks are decoys and which carry the payload that matters. Low-altitude coastal routes and urban edges degrade radar performance. Shoreline clutter and tree lines hide approach vectors until seconds before impact. Pre-planned waypoints minimize exposure inside jamming umbrellas. And modern autopilots ride wind lanes like rails. Add a weather window, gusts that push smoke, a layered cloud deck, nautical dawn when eyes calibrate poorly, and seemingly decent defenses produce catastrophic outliers. If 19 drones fall and one reaches a manifold, which number matters in the morning briefing? The second strike in a week isn't bravado, it is doctrine. Hit once to map the defender's response where the tracers rise, which blocks go dark, how fast the crash trucks stage, then hit again before repairs and discipline harden. The point isn't to win the scoreboard, it's to win the flow. Do you ring the terminal with more systems and accept a softer bridge, or hold your line at the bridge and risk another plume over the sea? Occupation officials can say, "We shot most of them down," but the lingering smoke publishes the only metric the region truly cares about: how long the fuel stays unusable and how much schedule your panic destroys. The visible damage is steel and flame. The real damage is time. Tankers miss berth windows and drift offshore, burning money while they wait. Rail dispatchers juggle timetables as sidings clog with cars queued for clearances that stretch with every hour the fire persists. Truck fleets get temporarily reassigned to longer loops that burn more fuel to move less fuel. Insurers add surcharges, captains quietly prefer distant ports, bureaucrats convene emergency committees that manufacture fresh bottlenecks. Meanwhile, all that still-burning footage doubles as intelligence. Daylight heat signatures reveal which tanks are cooked, which beams failed, and which manifold carried the initial fire. Each and every drone team watching that plume is already adjusting the next approach vector. Are you seeing a random blaze or a rehearsal viewed from the outside? There's a second layer: strategy under pressure. Russia is simultaneously pouring drones and missiles into Ukraine's energy grid, trying to grind down generation and morale. Major wires counted hundreds of drones and dozens of missiles launched this week, forcing Ukraine to burn interceptors and crews on long nights. But that campaign collides with Crimea's problem set. Every air defense unit pulled back to guard fuel is a unit not covering the next outbound volley or the next exposed crossing. In an economy of forces, protecting yesterday's fire can weaken tomorrow's punch. Which bucket do you fill first when both are on fire? Which choice will your opponent exploit within 24 hours? Expect 3 near-term shifts. First, diversion. Fuel will be rerouted to smaller depots and improvised storage across Crimea's road grid, creating a constellation of softer, spread-out targets that are harder to defend in depth, yet easier to detect by heat and habit. Second delusion. Air defense assets will redeploy to ring tank farms and piers, thinning protection over other valuable sites that suddenly look appetizing to a planner with a map and a stopwatch. Third, delay. Training flights and non-essential vehicle ops will be pared back while safety teams rebuild capacity at Feodosia, because the fastest way to stop the fire is to starve it. And the fastest way to starve it is to pause movement. None of those shifts trend on social feeds, all of them compound across a week. For pattern spotters, the rhyme is getting loud. A strike near midnight, a morning of smoke, official claims that most were intercepted, and then quiet changes to convoy tempos and flight schedules 2 or 3 days later. How many cycles before commanders preemptively throttle fuel to preserve optics? How many before crews conclude no rear area is truly rear? On the next plume, watch 3 places: tanker queues east of Kerch, railcar clusters around Zankov, and nighttime heat blooms at temporary storage that did not exist last week. If those graphs spike, the math is working. If the graphs don't spike, ask what had to be sacrificed elsewhere to keep them flat. Either way, Ukraine's small machines are forcing costly choices, and costly choices, repeated often enough, turn into outcomes the enemy never voted for. If this gave you a clear, hype-free picture of what changed on the ground, tap like so more people can see it. Hit subscribe and ring the bell to get the next verified breakdown the minute it drops. Then tell us in the comments which Crimean node, rail, road, or pier you want mapped next. And share this with one friend who still thinks the rear is safe, because tomorrow's plume may prove them wrong.